You don't realize the difference between
Oh, 7:30.
everybody take a toll on you when you get older.
John was just in the bathroom.
That's all right. All right, everybody. Welcome to tonight's September 28, 2017 special town council meeting. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance and moment of silence.
Mayor, point of order before you begin. I'd like to point out that this is an illegal meeting. We called it with only 24 hours worth of notice, and it is not an emergency. And per our rules, policies, and charter, you need 3 days.
I overrule it. Pledge of Allegiance.
Excuse me,
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
I'd like to hear from the town attorney, please, and get her opinion on this.
You guys are going to have to take a break. I can't play this
No.
and I get 5 minutes notice. You guys go to Randy DeBella 2 weeks in advance to get an opinion, and I get 5 minutes. And it's not fair. So I will
Be prepared to the town attorney.
The mayor is well aware of our rules and procedures and charter. He knows he has 3 days, and he could have called it in 3 days, but he didn't. So here you have it. If you
Excuse me.
Excuse me, I'm talking to our town attorney.
I'll read number 11,
Here you go.
which says 3 days prior to special meeting, but such requirement may be waived by the mayor under exigent circumstances.
It's not an exigent circumstance.
I declare exigent circumstances,
You cannot.
and the meeting's going forward.
You cannot declare it. You don't have the right
Item
to
2,
declare
public
it.
comments.
It's not an emergency.
Point of order. Rule number 12 of our rules and bylaws allow us to ask for anyone's opinion that may help with the decision-making process. Katie is asking the town attorney to review the case law that was just provided to her. That's an appellate court case regarding what is and is not an exigent circumstance.
This isn't on the agenda for tonight. You can invite people to the table for purposes of providing testimony, answering questions, to assist the council in the deliberations. This is not part of the deliberations. The deliberations are on the appointment, which is item 3 on the agenda tonight. So we're moving forward. You can challenge it after the fact if you want to, but this meeting is properly called, and we're moving on to item 2, which is public comment. Mr. Bear.
Point of order, section 39, Robert's Rules of Order, 11th edition, states improper motions. So if you want to continue, motions that conflict with the corporate charter, constitution, or bylaws of a society, or with procedural rules prescribed by national, state, or local laws are out of order. And if any motion of this kind is adopted, it is null and void.
Fine.
So if it's...
Declare it null and void after the fact. For tonight's purposes, this special meeting is properly called, and we're moving forward.
Well,
That's it. Mr. Bear, item 2.
Yes, Teresa.
Hello, thank you everyone. That's a wonderful note to start off with. I just wanted to take a moment to speak to everyone. Sorry, Teresa McSpadden, 16 Old Stone Road. To speak to everyone because I believe, well, I wasn't here at the last meeting, I was at the sewer meeting, which conflicted, but I believe there was some contention about the appointments. I think there's about 67 that are now on the agenda, 40 are about reappointments, I may have these numbers slightly wrong, and 27 are new. Since I'm one of the new ones, I wanted to tell you my story of how it came about, because there seems to be a ton of misinformation about it. Plus, I can tell the story of about 2 others, okay? So for myself, I'm up for appointment for zoning. After speaking with Tom O'Brien, who's here tonight and has resigned from the position to fulfill other things he needed to do, we spoke, and since he's a Democrat, and I'm a Democrat, and we have alignment, and he liked my position from the campaign, he became aware of me because of the campaign, he asked, and I accepted, and we discussed it, that I fulfill this appointment if it was given to me. So I contacted the mayor, and I'm not sure if Tom did, but he might have, and I put my name in for it. It was not the mayor, it was not the Democratic Town Committee. I did it, okay? So the responsibility for my appointment falls on me, the accountability. So you all should know that. I want the record stated correctly for that, because I believe there's been a lot of misinformation. I can't speak for everyone else, but I can speak for that. I can also speak for 2 of the sewer commission appointments, because they're also my doing, okay? I contacted the mayor, and I asked the mayor to reappoint Frank Bedetti. I've worked with Frank and Pete on the sewer commission. I thought he was a good appointment, and he should stay. Even though he's a Republican, I am the one who asked for that reappointment to the mayor, okay? There may have been others. Frank may have asked to be reappointed as well. I'm not privy to that information, but I can tell you that I did that, okay? I also asked the mayor to appoint Jeff Winters. I worked with Jeff Winters during the campaign. I found him to have I have great respect for him. Whether you agree with him or not, he has a wonderful mind. He has a great financial mind. He also has an acumen for the sewer commission, and I thought it would be a very good benefit to the town. So I wanted to make that clear of where at least those came from, because I think other people have been blamed for them. So if anyone has an issue with them, I am certainly available to speak to them. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Rick Sagan?
Rick Sagan, 57 Guernsey Lane. And for the record, at the moment, an alternate on zoning. I recently found out that I was being replaced, or would be replaced on the zoning commission. I've been an alternate now for almost 5 years. I didn't receive a letter, thanking me for my many years of service. I didn't receive a phone call explaining the reason why I was being removed. Not an email. And when it sank in, I had this sort of immediate sense of being mistreated. After all, I'd served actively for, again, almost 5 years. I was very invested. I put a lot of time in. We had a lot of late meetings. Literally years of learning regulations, the application process, commission rules, procedures, hundreds of meetings, hundreds of hours reading staff reports, writing responses, visiting locations, learning engineering terms, reviewing plans. There's a steep learning curve. And Mr. Taylor runs a pretty tight ship down there. I didn't get my position in zoning as a consolation prize. I believe I earned it. And I earned that opportunity to serve our community by first actually serving 3 years on economic development. There, I learned that if I was to make a difference in the town, if I was to affect positive change in our community, I believe zoning would be the next step. And I believe I made significant contributions. Perhaps most notable, the architectural guidelines, with the help of Bill, Laura, Sharon, Jim, Charlie, and Rob, the commission. I believe we're a cohesive group. We drafted architectural guidelines, which were proclaimed in the News Times as a way to protect New Milford's character. So, the guidelines are important. They were an achievement. There were a lot of hard work, and I'm an alternate. And I didn't look at it as if I was an alternate. I looked at it as a very important responsibility. And I was seated a lot of the time. We were encouraging really quality development, utilizing traditional New England designs. So this wasn't just my idea. I didn't act unilaterally. I shared it with the Trust for Historic Preservation. I went back to economic development. Members there encouraged additions and changes, and we adopted those. When I got the thumbs up from Pat Greenspan, I think I had it right. So after all the hard work, years of dedication, was I asked if I'd like to continue to serve. Were my fellow commissioners on a zoning board or even the zoning commissioner asked if I was effective or deserving. No. Was there any thought as to who was best for the job, who had experience? Apparently not. When we don't use common sense, when we don't put the town first and politics last, we don't deserve the privilege to be part of town leadership or governance. So in closing, I would like to thank everyone that has helped make our town better and helped me affect some positive change. Thank you.
Cindy Davis, please.
Cindy Davis, 15 Park Lane West. Rick, was that who just spoke? So, with regards with what Rick just said, I've chosen to accept this responsibility because as I spoke last time, because it takes a lot of work. I take to heart what he just said because I know that it's a tremendous amount of responsibility. It takes a lot of effort. My decision to take this on has to do because I care about the town and the town's character. I don't do Facebook. Someone passed along something that was said about me, about people being put into positions that were in before. So in response to that, I have not been in this position to take on this commission role before. Lastly, well, no, there's another thing. So what I just saw witnessed here with the Robert's Rules of Order, I have come to so many town council meetings, and it has really disturbed me to watch how there has not been Robert's Rules of Order followed the way it needs to be. I don't think you have a sergeant in arms who's supposed to handle the when some people are out of order. I'm thankful that there's no popcorn and no food on the door because of what happened last week when people were leaving food. That really bothered me. And so watching this come up for motions and Robert's Rules of Order, because I spent some time reading the charter, and it's very general, but now there's manipulation, the way I see it, manipulation occurring with whether it's that word, whatever word was just used, that it's not immediate. Well, my response is that it's interesting to me that Robert's Rules of Order is coming up now when, in fact, there's been so many issues that have behaviors and actions that would have called for more Robert's Rules of Order that did not take place. Last, if I can find it. Oh, I just lost it, so hold on. Let me see if I can find it. When I just had it here, and I don't know where it just went. Oh, okay, I found it again. No, it just disappeared. Okay. It was about reading, and the amount of, like 80% of people haven't been in a bookstore, 70% of 50 or 60% of kids who graduate from high school don't read, a high number of people who college graduates don't read. I'm saying this because if individuals would spend more time knowing facts, doing their research, looking at information, and not buying into the amount of misinformation or biased information or heated information, so that they would know so they would use their critical thinking to make valid decisions, not to be influenced because of emotionality and because of things that are being said. So that's what comes up for me when I have witnessed people in this room And this is just a microcosm of what's going on in the world. I feel it's really important for people to come in informed and not be coming to these meetings with so much wrong. Okay, that's fine. I'm done. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. Nick Powder, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, Nick Pooter, 228 Muriel Road. This raised actually a few questions that I think are relevant tonight. I have a number of them. The first one is, why were the council members only notified of this meeting and the new modified list yesterday instead of giving them more time to review? Why wasn't this council notified 3 days ago as required by your own rules? The rules adopted by this council very clearly state the special meeting agenda, including enclosures and supporting information, shall be, not should be, shall be available for pickup by members of the town council at least 3 days prior to the special meeting. But such requirement may be waived by the mayor under exigent circumstances. But there are no exigent circumstances. For Section 1002 of the Charter, these appointments don't even need to be made until March 2018, 4 months away. And even if they're not reappointed now, Chapter 1001 of the Charter states, appointees serve until their successors have been appointed and qualified. So please explain to me and the members of this audience what is so pressing about this that a special meeting in the middle of this busy holiday season is needed. Further, before forming this list, did the administration bother to contact Mayor-elect Bass to see if any potential candidates reached out to him directly? Because after last week's meeting on Monday, I know of at least 4 people who contacted Mr. Bass directly instead of Mr. Gronbeck because it was assumed that the issue was done and would be decided at a later date. Harold Hill is one of those people. Harold's a licensed civil engineer. He practices in road and sewer reconstruction. He serves as an agent for towns and municipalities reviewing the work of contractors. And he contacted Mr. Gronbeck over a year ago and asked to be considered to the appointment for the road committee. But Mr. Gronbeck felt he was too acrimonious because Harold sometimes has a difference of opinion. Although the chairman of that committee stated, and I quote, "Your knowledge and background would be an asset." So if you want someone who knows the DOT spec manual and will tell it to you inside and out, Harold is your guy. And I want someone like that fighting for me, because he's the person who knows how to build roads and knows how to bring them in on budget or under budget. Speaking of qualifications, did the town council have an opportunity to interview any of these new candidates? As I recall, when I was appointed several years ago, I had to come in front of the council and appear and tell you my qualifications. I also had to meet with the mayor and was interviewed by Mayor Murphy at that time. Lastly, regarding political party affiliations, several nominees appeared on the last list. They were listed as Democrats. They apparently changed from listed as unaffiliated. They changed from Democrat to unaffiliated after the election, and then just in the last week, apparently have changed back to Democrat. The mayor is quoted in the newspaper as calling this a mistake of the DTC, although it's the mayor's obligation to put forth this list, not the DTC. So what exactly is this mistake? Is this a simple typographical error where D and U were mixed up on the keyboard? Or did these people in fact change parties? And what parties do these candidates actually belong to today? And do they in fact comply with the party representation requirements that are spelled out in the statute? In light of this error, I think it's fair to question just how carefully Mayor Gronbeck checked the nominee list. What other errors may exist? What happens if after the fact it's revealed that these nominees were appointed based on factually inaccurate information? Will their appointments be rescinded? And what is the remedy if the facts have been misrepresented for one reason or another? At a bare minimum, those nominations should be delayed until the facts are revealed. It appears to me that the specific requirements in the charter in the council's I'm almost done. And the council's own rules have been disregarded. The council's actions here tonight reflect on this lack of transparency and in its decision making. And transparency in governance is essential. I urge you to delay this nomination process until next month, when these issues can be fully investigated and these candidates properly vetted. Thank you.
Cooper.
Dan Kuiper, 13 Sunset Drive. So I've served on the Inland Wetlands Commission since 2014 and as secretary for the last 2 years. My term expired in November 2016, but I was allowed and continued to serve for the past year despite the expiration of my term, along with 2 other members whose terms had expired in November 2016 as well. During the course of the past year, the 3 of us were neither reappointed nor was anyone appointed to serve in our place. I wasn't quite sure how the reappointment process worked. I personally thought it was customary for the mayor's office to reach out to those serving when their terms expired, but I never received any form of communication from the office. It wasn't until the Friday before the last regular meeting that I learned via the agenda that I was no longer being considered for the commission, nor were the 2 other commission members whose terms had expired as well. And I found out we were all being replaced. The members on the Wetland Commission have a great working relationship, and I think we've done very well serving the community. So I was surprised and really couldn't understand why we would risk that relationship by having a 40% turnover in the membership. I can understand giving different people the opportunity to serve, especially if there's vacancies, but just kicking someone off a commission without speaking to them seems out of line. If there was a problem with my membership on the commission, then why wasn't someone appointed to replace me a year ago, along with the other 2 commission members whose terms had expired as well? And why wouldn't the mayor reach out to get to know me or to provide the common courtesy to explain to me why I was being replaced? My conclusion was that saving up these appointments for the right time was a plan to put politics over what is best for our community. So I attended the town council meeting last Monday. I listened, and I heard loud and clear the mayor's call for those who wish to serve to contact the mayor's office. So on Tuesday morning, I promptly called and expressed my interest in continuing to serve. On Wednesday, I sent a follow-up email, once again indicating my desire to continue serving on the commission. I explained how I value preservation of our environment and how I believe staying engaged in the community is important, and also shared how my time on the commission has also been a valuable and rewarding experience for me personally. I provided my phone number and said I'd be available to visit the office if the mayor wished to speak to me. However, I never got a call. No one ever reached out. So when the agenda for this special meeting was published, I once again didn't see my name on the list of appointments to the commission. Instead, my role was now listed as a vacancy on that commission. So, last week we heard, that no one was reaching out with their desire to serve, and that waiting another week would give us some time to have other names put forward. I've also heard that those who did ask for reappointment were reappointed. Well, I've tried to reach out twice now. I've been ignored. Again, my name is not on that list of appointments. So I just want to make sure if you're here again tonight, right, that nobody's calling, right, that people were reappointed. It's just absolutely not true. So please take that into consideration when you vote tonight.
Just to be clear, you haven't been replaced. You're going to continue to serve until you are replaced. That's why your name's not on here. So you just continue to serve in your current capacity
right now.
What's your last name?
Kuiper.
It
It says 2 remaining vacancies, and that's mine and the chairman's.
Kepper? No, it's not. You're on there. You're still serving. Mr. Barrett.
Question about Nick Gregorio, please.
Joseph D. Gregorio, 18 Cobbler Lane. I'm here as a resident of the town. You know what? So many wonderful things have been said. I'd just like to thank everybody for their service, either appointed volunteers, volunteers on council, various elected boards and commissions, and even the mayor. It's a wonderful thing. I just wish, honestly, I wrote something, but to be honest with you, I don't want to drag this meeting on any longer than it needs to go on. Why is it so hard to follow the rules? To follow some sort of process and to work in a cooperative fashion. I can't seem to get Mr. Kane. I brought this up last week. According to the town charter, your term expired in November. According to Katie, this meeting doesn't necessarily need to be held, for various reasons that she brought up. And we have a whole bunch of people here who either weren't reached out to or there's confusion about whether or not they're even going to be on the boards. Let's straighten some things out and move forward together as opposed to just continuing the divisive political, climate that our town has been in. And that's all I got to say.
Eric Jones.
Jones, 345 Litchfield Road. I've been a resident of this town for approximately 30 years. I'm an unaffiliated voter, so have the least a chance of anybody getting on any kind of board. But you know, you hear a lot going on. It's always the same every 2 years. People are always try to roadblock what the other people are trying to do. A few people will work together. I've seen it. I've seen it in zoning. I've seen it in the wetlands. But this room right here is a big problem a lot of times. And as the previous speaker said, I wish people could work together better. But just as a general point of law, I think a lot of this, what I'm hearing going on, is just very hypocritical. The same thing happened when the when the current mayor was coming in as mayor-elect and Mayor Murphy was leaving. She appointed people. The Democrats didn't like that. Now, Democrats appointing people, Republicans don't like that. It's the same thing. Yes, there's more vacancies, but it's exactly the same thing. I think if the mayor-elect and the town council-elect don't like it, they should get that rule changed well prior to the next time an election comes up, so we don't have to go through all this stupid crap again. You know, you have to assume that, you know, everybody on the boards are intelligent people. They have reasons. Maybe they know, you know, interests or knowledge that the people they're appointing to these boards know that the general public doesn't know. I literally know maybe 3 or 4 people in this room. That's it. So this is not a plug for anybody or vendetta against anybody. But I think if it was fair for Mayor Murphy to appoint people towards the end of her mayoral process, it's not unfair to the current mayor to appoint people he wants for him leaving. So I just think the whole thing's very hypocritical that people say, oh, it's unfair, it's unprecedented. As far as the legality of the meeting, I don't know about that, but if it is legal, if it's the mayor's right to do it, then he should be allowed to do it. Same as Mayor Murphy did. And as I understand, the mayor's wife is no longer to be appointed, but I'm sure Clark Chapin was going to be appointed last time. He's done a lot of great work in his state. I don't see that there was going to be a big hullabaloo about that from the Republicans last time, maybe the Democrats, but it's the same thing. It's just very hypocritical, and I just think people should work together. If it's the mayor's legal right to make an appointment, then they should do it, whether it's Republican, Democrat. Probably no chance it'll be an unaffiliated mayor, but, you know, that's the way things go. And I just think people should work together. And, you know, if it's the rule that they're allowed to do it, then I don't see why everything should be challenged. If the person has the knowledge and the willingness to serve, I thank everybody from both parties, and even what few unaffiliated people there are on any boards, for the time they spend doing their work, you know, for the town. So that's my thing. Just don't be hypocrites about it. You know, it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander. If you don't like it, change it well before the next election so the same junk doesn't come up the next time. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Jackie Mulroy.
Hi, Jackie Mulroy, 38 Putnam Road. I want to go through a little thing that is a follow-up to the last meeting. A little bit of history that maybe people have forgotten. In 2015, once, as was just previously mentioned, the same thing took place and everything went ahead smoothly. I don't like the hypocrisy of it either. I see that also on Facebook, where people are just using inappropriate language and calling people out with general, you know, if I had an issue with you, Katie, I would talk to you. I wouldn't go all out and blast it all over town without it, one, being accurate. That would be lovely. That would be really nice. But anyway, difference between 2015 and 2017 on that. Since the change in positions, I've been following some of your words, Mr. Bass, and I want to believe that the things that you committed to are valid and real, and that you're really going to do these things. For instance, you were quoted in the paper today. What was it? I'd rather be inclusive than exclusive. And I want to hold you to that, because we have a major problem in this town. It can't be Democrats and Republicans. That's ridiculous. I'd personally like to go for a man versus woman. I think we do really well now, and we'll just change the whole dynamic and see how that goes. But since that's not possible today, we'll have to do other things. But I would like to eliminate the environment of hostility, that we have to work together, that we're all members of this town and we want the best for it. I don't want to see things like people just sitting around and saying, no, I need to think about that more. That was another thing. I need to think about it more. I need more time. I need a lot of time to think about it and to go forward. That kind of hit a nerve for me, and I'm sorry about this, but it did. These are things that people say to debt collectors. I need more time. You made a promise at the debate that all of those issues would be gone in January. God bless you, and I hope that happens. But I don't want to see another 2 years of, well, at least that's not happening anymore. And there's a lot of, Mr. Esposito, you do some very entertaining gestures and looks into the audience, etc. Sometimes amusing, but I don't know how effective it is as far as reaching the people of this town. We are diverse. We're not just Republicans and Democrats. We're people that have very diverse interests. And the thing that killed me was the big to-do last time, and knowing that we are trying to do Democrats. As a representative of the Democratic Party, I'll admit it. And I will say that, we try to do what is fair, what is right. And because that was something that Mayor Murphy did in the past, that, there shouldn't be any problem. What I see on a lot of these issues are, I can't believe how disgusting these people are. I can't believe they're doing this. And you're like, didn't that happen last year with the, so we got to stop that. We really have to stop that. And if you don't come out and you just bring in like herds of people with torches and pitchforks, that's not going to help anything. I see kind of that. Okay. I see that kind of thing happening too. If you don't have a good answer, a productive way of doing something to unify the town, then shut up. But, if you've got a good solution, say it. And I'm just frustrated because the hypocrisy of this whole thing. You guys know that. You know that. Everybody's got their whole thing, like the attorney was saying, well, you had 2 weeks to conjure up this and conjure up that. And the way that the bullets go flying on Facebook, what's the goal here? What is that goal? I'd like to know. Because it's not to bring us together. Not at all. It's making us far apart. So inclusive, I'm calling you on it. Not so much. And I think that if you're going to be in charge, take care of it. Don't create a monster here, because it's not going to be good for the community. And now it's in your hands. You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Harold Hill, please.
Good evening. For those who don't know me, Harold Hill, 66 North Road in Milford, Connecticut. I have copies of some emails I sent. This one's, I'll read a portion of it. Interested in being a member of the Roadway Advisory Committee. It's from May 5th, 2016. My qualifications include bachelor's degree in civil engineering from University of Connecticut, a fully licensed professional engineer in Connecticut. At the time, I had over 18 years of experience, all aspects of design and constructions of roads, bridges, and utilities in Connecticut. I'm a lifetime resident in Milford. This email I got from Robert Barone, at the time was chairman of
says, thank you for attending the meeting and forwarding your contact info. Your knowledge and background would be an asset to this committee. Another email I got from Robert Bryan. You certainly are qualified to have a seat on the committee. I hope to convince the mayor to reconsider. And last but not least, I have my denial of being a road committee member from David Gronbeck. And you have a knowledgeable background that would be of value to the committee, and you go on to give what, in my opinion, very petty excuse for denying me. I'd like to submit these to the council. Have a good evening.
James Kick, please. Good evening. For the record, James Kick, 3 Richcon Drive, town. I too am disappointed about the bickering, and I think it's been facilitated by a few. I won't go into deep details on it. We all know who we are. Mr. Mayor Gronbeck, what you're proposing to do with tonight's agenda is not at all in the interest or in concert with the desire of the voters of New Milford. Your plan to appoint people that were defeated or turned out in the recent election by the voters, and your position not to reinstate proven present commission and board members of this community is not right and is not in the best interest of New Milford. Some of those people you are proposing to install into these vacancies that were wrongfully created by you and not appointing present members will now be seated on up to 3, possibly more boards or commissions to fill these now unjustly created vacancies. For any one of these appointees to be effective would be a major task if potentially and possibly seated on upwards from 3 to 5 boards or commissions. What you are doing is basically amounts to selective gerrymandering. This is wrong, and what you are doing will potentially gridlock the government of this town, thus preventing the advancement of this town. If you and the town council proceed and approve any part of this sham, the disaster results will be in your hands. Thank you. Carl Dunham, please.
Carl Dunham, 195 Kenwood Mountain Road. I would like to first thank all of you for your service for the last couple of years. You know, you volunteer your time and try to do what you think is best based on the information you have, and I commend you for your service. Okay. I would like to point out what I think are some fundamental issues for consideration tonight. It's important to give the people in the town the opportunity to consider coming forward to serve. There should be information made available to all of the vacancies to be filled, with the possibility that additional people might like to come forward and be considered. This includes independents as well as party members, noting that there are more independents than there are either party members. This will also give each party the opportunity to seek out members who are interested in serving, such that there is a choice in the selection of the persons as well as the party considerations. I really take issue with the thought of just appointing whoever you want. A lot of these appointments really go on to commissions that are elected, zoning, planning, and yet you're putting people on that you just decide you want. I really take issue with the thought that there may be a lot of other people in town that are willing to serve. I think you've heard some of them tonight. People that have been displaced or not followed up. I think it's terrible not to acknowledge the services of people who have come forward and served in the past, Mr. Sasha, and at least give them the respect of that. So I just think that this is too important an issue for you to sit and propose a lot of names that some people say no, they don't know. You haven't interviewed them. You haven't spoken to them. You have eliminated the possibility of bringing other people forward. It just makes no sense. I'm tired of the party crap. Honestly, whether it's Republican or Democrat, it makes no difference. We're all here as members of the public. And I think you're going to get the feeling tonight that the public is upset with this process. I don't get it. You know, you're trying to create a harmonious team, and yet you're starting off by inserting people that eliminate other people's positions and discount the fact that there may other people be out there other than the same standard people that want to be on 2 or 3 commissions. So I don't get it, and I would hope that this thing gets terminated tonight so that it doesn't require more acrimonious efforts. Thank you.
John Pick, please.
For the record, my name is Joan Kick. I reside at 3 Richcon Drive. Good evening. I was present at last week's town council meeting and was most embarrassed and appalled with the behavior I witnessed. It brought me some solace that the young man who we met briefly and was meeting with you to discuss his Eagle Scout project escaped most of the unbecoming behavior that I did observe. As a former educator in the local public schools and having worked on 2 of the New Milford public schools strategic plans, I feel compelled to share this with you. Strategy number 2 of the strategic plan is character education, which, by the way, has been implemented in all of the schools, the public schools here in New Milford. Frank, you were with me on that committee, and you know how passionate we were about implementing a character education program, not only in our schools, but also involving families and our community. Mr. Rod was also there on that committee, the very first planning committee. Strategy number 2 states, we will develop and implement a system-wide character education program consistent with our mission and objectives. There are 6 action plans to accomplish this strategy, character education. The first one is to establish common core character education attributes to be integrated into our schools, families, and community. Respect, responsibility, honesty, compassion, perseverance, citizenship, loyalty, courage, cooperation, and integrity. Positive character traits are those things that draw us to other people. Let me elaborate a bit. Be honest. Tell the truth. Be sincere. Don't mislead or withhold information, key information in relationships of trust. Demonstrate integrity. Stand up for your beliefs about right and wrong. Be your best self. Resist social pressure to do wrong. Keep promises. Keep your word and honor your commitments. Be loyal. Stand by family, friends, employers, community, and country. Be responsible. Think before you act. Consider consequences. Be accountable. Pursue excellence. Do your best with what you have. Don't quit easily. Be kind and caring. Show you care through generosity and compassion. Don't be selfish and mean. Treat all people with respect. Be courteous and polite. Judge all people on their merits. Be tolerant, appreciative, and accepting of individual differences. Be fair. Treat all people fairly, open-minded, listen to others, and to try to understand what they are saying and feeling. Be a good citizen. Obey the law and respect authority. Vote. Volunteer your efforts, thank you very much everyone here, and protect the environment. To demonstrate positive character traits, whether working in a group, on a committee, or sitting on our town council, requires one to communicate respectively and effectively, to participate in building a positive culture, and teamwork to reach a common goal for the committee work. This is not Washington, D.C. This is New Milford, Connecticut, my town, our town. Council members, I implore each and every one of you not to vote party lines, but to vote with integrity, responsibility for the citizens of New Milford who elected you to represent them, and for the future growth of our community, my town, our town, New Milford. It is my hope that before you cast your vote tonight, that you will consider the effects of your vote, the rippling effects, and the impact that your vote will play for the good of New Milford, for our future. It rests in your hands tonight. Thank you.
Steve Looney, please.
Good evening. My name is Stephen Looney, 55 Fordyce Road in New Milford. I too would like to quickly thank all of the volunteers on this council for your 2 years of service. What a difference 2 years makes. I will rehash the last special meeting that I attended. Mr. McBriarty was there, and I'm glad at this special meeting that the public is actually allowed to comment. The last special meeting that I attended, the parliamentarian attempted to quell Mr. McBriarty and my ability to speak. He lost. The charter rules town council. The now disgraced parliamentarian and the mayor had to go down and confer with the charter and had to come up and admit that they were wrong. The meeting proceeded as this meeting proceeded, but nobody has checked the charter. I'm sorry, but for a town attorney who's being well paid and was vetted, I would think, by this mayor and this town council, for that person to be unable to give an opinion or unwilling to give an opinion is a disservice to all of us that are paying taxes to pay that salary. Another concern I have is last week when we were here, we had a bunch of U's and we had a bunch of D's. Now we got a bunch of U's and a bunch of D's, but we switched the names around. Still got a lot of the same people. Some people, I guess, highly embarrassed at being caught, are no longer on the list. I implore the current town council to follow the charter, to follow state regulations, to not allow people who have switched party once or twice in the last 2 weeks to be appointed to any board or commission that represents me or utilizes my tax dollars. I do still take issue with the fact that Mr. Kane is still seated at the table when his term ended, per charter, on election day. It's clear cut. You don't need a degree to read basic English. But I'll leave that up for you guys to decide. I also appreciate Robert's rule, as I believe tonight we will see Robert's rule being implemented. Not only that will affect tonight's meeting, but I believe it will affect the very first town council meeting of the incoming mayor and his town council. I don't feel that anybody who is going up for one committee should be on several commissions or committees. As we just heard Mrs. McSpenden say, she couldn't make a town council meeting because she had a commission meeting at Seward. We have some people here who are up for 3-4 commissions. How does that serve us? We got plenty of volunteers. Okay, this administration is choosing to ignore them. Hopefully, Mr. Bass will do as he says, and he won't ignore them. Thank you.
Lisa Hyder, please.
Lisa Hida, 11 Buckboard Lane, and I'll be quick and I'll hopefully be additive. So if the choice is to move forward with the list tonight and vote on it, there are 2 candidates in particular that I think should not be moved forward. These committees are important. They make decisions on the behalf of our community and on behalf of the town. Details matter. I was sitting in at the Siting Council hearing several weeks ago, and I was listening to various committee members give their testimony regarding the Candlewood Solar Project. A very detailed testimony, not to be taken lightly. It struck me then, and it strikes me now, that details are important. So as has been said several times, there are two candidates, Irene Scribalo, I apologize if I said her name wrong, and Rosalind Gill, who last time were presented in this meeting as, I believe, unaffiliated. Now they're Democrats after a lengthy discussion last time at Town Council. And I believe the reason that was put forward is because the DTC put their names forward with that designation. It doesn't matter. It's incumbent upon you, the person whose name is on that list, to make sure your facts are right. And if you're not going to check your own facts, how do we know that they'll check the facts needed to make key decisions on behalf of the towns and committees? So I would ask that if we do move forward tonight with the process, that Irene Scribalo and Rosalind Gill be not considered for their positions for this oversight. I love what was just said about character education. Two things: don't mislead and be accountable. Thank you.
McBride, please. Jeffrey McBride, 288 Kent Road. Honorable Mayor David Grombeck, ladies and gentlemen of the Town Council. First, Mr. Mayor, I wanted to thank you for your 2 years of loyal service to our town. Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it. With that said, I'm here again to speak to 5 members of the Town Council tonight. Mary Jane Lundgren, John Kane, Walter Bear, Frank Wargo, and Jessica Richardson. Tonight in this meeting is a time where your conscience concerning the voice of the people of New Milford will greatly matter. You will be voting to appoint several people to positions within the town, and 2 on this list are still not eligible to fill seats in the town from my perspective, and they are Leah Gill, who is now all of a sudden listed as Democrat on the Zoning Board of Appeals section of this agenda, and she's not eligible because she is registered as unaffiliated as of the 20th of this month. The same applies for Irene Scribalo, who is now all of a sudden listed as a Democrat on the Inland Wetlands Commission, and she is currently registered as unaffiliated and she cannot be appointed to this position. I urge you to not let fear tactics that is in the intent of tonight's meeting again come into play here, and do not be intimidated in any way, shape, or form by anyone, but do the right and honorable thing for the town of New Milford, her citizens who have spoken, her future. In doing so, you will have maintained your integrity, dignity, self-respect, and worth as a representative of the constituents who elected you to your respective positions on the town council. When it comes time to vote on these appointments tonight, I urge you to use your conscience as a guide and make the right decisions for the betterment of the town and her citizens. When you do so, if you fail to act as a responsible elected official tonight of this town and do what the voters elected you to do, then you have not voted the conscience on the voters, and you have failed as a representative of this town, and you have not maintained your integrity, dignity, or self-respect or worth as a representative of New Milford, but stained it, and you will be staining your legacy for all time. So will you maintain your integrity, your dignity, and self-respect and worth and have a great legacy, or will you let political corruption define who you are? That is what the intent is here tonight, ladies and gentlemen, to whom I am speaking to. Political corruption to disrupt the new administration that is about to take office is the intent here, and is the only reason that this meeting is being held. I can't believe in my heart that you would all allow corruption within our town to define you. I just can't believe it. Again, the definition of corruption is corrupting or government officials, a departure from the original or from what is pure or correct. Integrity is the quality of being honest and having strong moral principles or moral uprightness. Dignity is the state or quality of being worthy of honor or respect. Self-respect is a proper respect for oneself as a human being or regard for one's own standing or position. And conscience is the sense of or the moral goodness or blameworthiness of one's own conduct, intentions, or character, together with a feeling of obligation to do right or be good. I know in my heart that Mary Jane, John, Walter, Jessica, and Frank have all three qualities and a stable conscience. And I feel in my heart that tonight you will all act accordingly and do the right and honorable thing here for New Milford, our citizens, and her future as well as yours. And I would also like to thank Mary Jane Lundgren, John Kane, Frank Wargo, and Jessica Richardson for your love service to the town and the town council. Thank you all very much.
That's the end of the list, Mr. Mayor.
Very good. All right, going on to item 3. I'll entertain a motion for the appointments and reappointments to boards and committees pursuant to the agenda items.
Motion to approve the appointments and reappointments to boards and commissions as listed on the agenda.
Is there a second? On favor?
Aye.
Whoa, point of order.
We have ayes.
Robert's
How many
rules
ayes?
of order dictates discussion on a motion. It's crystal clear.
I don't believe that discussion is going to have an impact on this matter, one way or another.
Robert's rules of order dictate discussion.
Robert's Rules of Order doesn't dictate anything. As the chairman, I said what the rules are, and I said that, ladies and gentlemen, where are Robert Rules of Order? Discussion is not going to change this matter. Sir, did you hear anything that Mrs. Kick had said? Sir, this is a discussion now amongst the town council. Control yourself.
Oh, now you're going to stop.
Control yourself.
Oh, good. That's all we want.
We have a motion. We have a second. Let's have it up for discussion. Are you ready for a vote, or do you want to have discussion? I'll leave it to the members of the council.
I'd like to make a motion to divide this and vote on these per appointment, like we have done here, as long as I've been here, which is 8 years. And I know Frank has done it the same, and I know Walter's done it the same. We voted per appointment. We should go line by line to each department.
Yeah,
this
All right, let's take a vote on it.
I just want to correct a little bit. Ray O'Brien used to really be a stickler when somebody was appointed.
The point of order, the motion to divide is on the floor. It needs to be voted on.
Oh, Mr. Szymanski, no, Mr. Wargo, you could respond.
And he wanted to interview people. And it was sometimes time consuming. But the last meeting of our Pipler, there was something like 78 appointments. And he made a motion to vote on 78 appointments without separating it. And I asked him, how come you're not going through each one like you used to every other meeting? He said, because it would take too much time. So,
Mr. Wargo, let me ask you something else. 2 years ago, when 47 and 70 appointments were made in those 2 November meetings, did the council go through each one individually, or was it just a general appointment Mr. Bassett made? Do you remember, Mr. Wargo?
no, it was done in group because nobody complained.
No, it wasn't, because JPS was voted down. Absolutely not.
The last motion 2 years
You
ago.
spoke up and you requested that
You
the
asked us
JPS
not to
committee
do it.
not be filled,
And we didn't do
so
it.
that the new mayor could fill the committee. It was
Yes.
broken up.
And we
But the rest of the
And we have it on
appointments
tape.
were all made, all in bulk, with the exception of the Pettibone, which was withdrawn. So to say that, we go through line by line, it wasn't done 2 years ago, and it's appropriate to do it now.
We have an audience that has expressed concern that the town is not being fairly heard. It is up to this body to go line by line. We're not talking person by person, but group by group. The Candidate Lake Commission, Commission on Aging, and all the way through like we've done for years. Whether Ray O'Brien didn't do it a decade ago or it wasn't done 2 years ago is irrelevant in this situation. There weren't 175 people here for 2 weeks in a row, maybe 250 people, ready to take the building down. I think it would be fair for us to divide this and go motion by motion. I think you would probably get a lot more than you want if you went line by line, Dave.
Well, why don't we have the discussion individually? Why don't we just address what the issues are? So we don't have to go line by line. Yes, Mr. Bass.
First of all, this meeting's shameful at best.
I'm sorry, Pete.
This is shameful at best. This isn't who we are. This is not who we are.
That's right.
This is not
Get the crowd in.
We're talking about 2 years ago. 2 years ago, Mayor Murphy called all the appointments. That's why you didn't see the appointments coming up here, or the people that didn't get awarded saying, you know, I wasn't asked. I wasn't given an opportunity. You had a gentleman here that was from the zoning commission. Been there 5 years, done his time. We've got another gentleman here with his time. But we don't even give him a courtesy call. That's why the people are enraged. That's why the people are upset. Another thing, it's all about procedure, right? So we had asked before, no offense to Mr. Kane, but we asked before, is this a proper seating? We heard from the mayor that our town clerk is really the person that decides that. Well, we all got a letter now from the town clerk saying that he indeed is not seated. So my question, and we have from the former town, from the former town attorney, stating as such.
Former.
So my question again is going to be to our town attorney. How would she opine on that?
I haven't looked at Noreen's letters, but I have spent since the last town meeting going through all this, reading case law, reading state statutes. My take on this, and you're free to not agree with my opinion, is that, again, there were two options. One, the town council could vote to have someone fill the position. That would extend to the 30th. It would be cut off if the election occurs and the public was given the choice to fill that vacancy. Because the problem that you run into is if his term ended on the 7th, who decides who takes that seat if we're getting into electors? Because your seats don't have numbers, they don't have parties assigned to them, so you still run into this wall. So had there been something on the ballot saying that there's this vacancy, and I know it would only be for a short amount of time, so it seems silly, but that's how it would operate, and that's how the state statutes operate.
So I have a question.
Sure.
So Connecticut General Statutes 1-1, words and phrases, states construction of statutes. So how our charter's right. In the construction of the statutes, words and phrases shall be construed according to the commonly approved usage of the language. In technical words and phrases and such as have acquired the peculiar and appropriate meaning in the law shall be construed and understood accordingly. So my understanding is that if the charter is clear, whether the intent makes sense or not, but if the charter is clear, it must be followed, whether it doesn't make sense or not.
But it's
Do you agree with that?
I agree, but it's not clear.
Okay,
Our
so
whole charter is not clear.
Section 205 of the charter, vacancies, elective offices, reads any vacancy from whatever cause arising. So you would agree that there was a cause that arose and there was a vacancy.
Sure.
In any elective office, town office, except in the case of mayor. So we agree this wasn't the mayor. Shall be filled within 60 days of such vacancy by appointment. That was done. You agree with that? Mm-hmm. For the unexpired portion of the term, or until the next regular town election, as defined in the statutes, whichever shall first occur. So as our attorney, which do you believe first occurred? For the unexpired portion of the full term, which would be November 30th, or until the next regular town election?
But it's an or. So if you fill it...
No.
Attorney Rigdon, you've rendered your opinion.
Please be respectful in
I
the
have
audience.
the floor! Thank
Please
you!
be respectful.
You don't.
Which occurred first, the election or the expiration of the
would
term?
have had to have included a vote for the people to fill that seat. Because
Point of order.
The point of
Point
order.
of order, Mr. Szymanski, you are not an attorney.
Which occurred first?
What does that mean?
It means he does not have the right to give a legal opinion.
You've asked
That's
for her
what it
opinion. Ladies and gentlemen of this council,
You guys are the council.
you've asked for an opinion.
Mr. Szymanski.
I'm going to say one
Point
thing with
of
regard to
order.
this. So back in September 11, 2017, this issue was raised, and the town clerk confirmed the interpretation that he served until November 30th. It was raised again at the last meeting, and we confirmed again that Mr. Kane serves until November 30th. And the issue is, he serves until November 30th. Now, if you disagree with that, You can take whatever measures you want after this meeting to nullify his vote, to nullify whatever happens tonight. But as for tonight, he's seated and he's voting as a full member. And you can do what you got to do afterwards.
It's still on the table.
His motion has nothing to do with John Kane. I'd like to get back to Tom's motion.
Sure. Okay.
Listen, it's just respectful for us to go through each one of these like we've done. It
have
won't
a
take
motion.
very long, and I don't think it'll be as argumentative as you believe.
Mr. Bear.
We could just motion to divide and follow through like we've done in the past.
Councilman Esposito, I'm asking you, there are 23 categories here. You're saying one category at a time?
One category at a time.
Quickly.
I don't want to stay here any longer than I have to. As anybody else.
I understand that. This causes really a conundrum for me. And yet, looking at the crowd of people around here, and I do not want to abstain. The only voice that really made sense to me, and I don't mean to embarrass anybody, was when Eric got up to speak. What he talked about is what we have been doing forever. And I know I have committed myself, my loyalty obviously is to the people of New Milford, but my loyalty is also to the mayor. However, I must admit, the preponderance of public here has overwhelmed me. And there are two motions on the floor. I will withdraw my second. I will go with Councilman Esposito's 23 categories.
Sure. Fair enough. Okay, so let's do it by category.
There's no second to his motion.
Okay. Second.
Well, the original motion, there are two motions on the floor, but the original motion was...
If the second is rescinded, it's not a motion. So therefore, the floor is open to his, not amendment, to his motion.
Okay.
His motion needs to be second. That's what I'm saying.
He just needs a second.
All right.
And
So why don't you second his motion?
I will second.
Okay.
Councilman.
All in favor of addressing it as categories?
Aye.
Okay. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. So the first one is the Candlewood Lake Authority. So, well, why don't we just, do we have to?
She can't make the motion on herself.
Right. Mary Jane Lundgren, Democrat, term of 12/01/2017, November 30, 2020.
Second.
Further discussion?
Yes.
Mr. Szymanski, right? I'm sorry?
Go ahead. No? Oh, Mr. Ings here. Does he have anything to say, or?
I'm just here because my name was on the agenda and I didn't want anybody to say anything negative.
Fair enough.
So,
he resigned.
If you would like to ask me questions, if you give me permission to stand up to the podium, I'll answer any questions you have.
Mary Jane just said you resigned. Did you resign? Or?
I honestly did not resign. I had numerous dialogue with Mayor Grombach.
Yeah.
True fact.
Sure.
So
I
the impression you had resigned.
And I asked the mayor if I could finish my term.
Right.
I did not resign, correct?
That's correct. So you didn't resign. Your term is expired. And just to clarify,
I got 2 more days then.
until November 30th, exactly. Right. We discussed, Mr. Ang, I don't want to talk out of turn, but haven't been attending, and there were reasons for that, and that's perfectly fine. So we said that you'd fill out your term. I told you that we were interested in appointing, Ms. Lundgren. Wasn't any kind of objection to that. So that's how we got here today, and I hadn't heard from you that you wanted to be reappointed. So I thought that our conversation still stood. Fair enough? Sure. Okay, very good. So that being said,
although it's a change from Republican to Democrat, I'm in favor in the spirit of cooperation.
Very good. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. Commission on Aging. In accordance with the agenda, I'll entertain a motion, in accordance with the agenda on the Commission on Aging.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I'll entertain a motion in accordance with the agenda with regard to the Commission on the Arts.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I'll entertain a motion with regards to the Economic Development Commission in accordance with the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Mr.
Szymanski.
Although Mr. Piper was a Republican, Mr. Karp is a Democrat, and he also serves on the Sewer Commission, I'm supportive of it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Point of order.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm not up to speed on this, but I don't think the R's, the D's, and the U's have any meaning at all.
When it's a
on
vacancy,
appointment
it does.
of a commission, it's whether the minority representation is.
No, you're wrong.
That's
Section
true.
1003 for a vacancy requires it to be the same.
But it's not a vacancy.
Correct.
These are
Further down it is.
Yeah, okay. But if it's an expired term, the only thing that's to consider is whether minority representation is maintained. So whether it's a D that went to a U or a U that went to a D.
I wasn't saying it was illegal. What I was saying is,
No,
although
I'm
it's
not
a different
referring to
political
you.
party, I'm in favor.
I'm just making a point that when it comes to appointment of a new position, not a reappointment, it's an expired position. The only consideration for our Ds and Us is whether the minority is represented.
I think that's fair, Mr. Wargo, and that's settled. If you're replacing somebody that resigned during their term, you would have to appoint somebody who was the same party affiliate.
Right.
Okay, fair enough.
Excuse me.
No,
No.
I'm sorry, Mr. Ang. We can't entertain this one. Thank you.
Then I resign.
It's still for your expired term. It doesn't work that way.
What, then you gotta fill it with an R.
No, you
Like
don't.
you just said, if somebody resigns, you gotta fill it with an R.
It's at the end of your term, so that's when it
I
would
got 2
be.
more days.
Okay. So economic development, I think we all voted all in
Yeah.
favor. That was an aye.
Yes.
Okay. Ethics Commission, I'll entertain a
So
motion.
moved to accept.
Okay. Second. Okay. Is there discussion? All in favor?
I received an email from Pete Helmus, who expressed an interest in serving. Did anyone talk to him? He was sent to our town council address.
I received a number of emails from a number of people that were interested. Mr. Kirchner is has a background in business ethics. That's part of his employment. He seemed to be the most qualified, and I think that I've got no connection with him. Outside of this, he was motivated out of the call to serve, and it appears that he will fill the role appropriately as the designated U on the Ethics Commission. So, that's that. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Entertain a motion with regard to Farmland and Forest
So
Preservation
moved.
Committee.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Entertain a motion with regard to Film Commission.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Entertain a motion with regard to the Board of Finance.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion, Mr. Szymanski?
Yeah, I know there was a lot of discussion about, Mayor Murphy last 2 years ago had appointed people who lost the municipal election to boards. So I went through and looked at every single position. The only one I found, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, I'll be happy to admit I'm wrong, was Trevor Herbest, who had lost his Board of Finance race and was appointed as a Board of Finance alternate. Every single one of us voted in favor. Based on that, I will be voting in favor of Mr. Winter's appointment.
Fair enough. Mr. Esposito.
I will concur with my colleague here. My issue going forward is the multiple boards that Mr. Winter is being appointed to, which I will be discussing later.
Okay. That being said, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Hidden Treasures Park.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Second. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Historic Properties. Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Housatonic River Commission.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Mr. Szymanski.
Mr. Gambino's taken the time to stay for an hour and something. Does he at least want to say hi? Or
As the former mayor, come on up and say hello if you want.
Bob, are you hiding? Oh.
long-winded. I said hi.
Mayor Gambino, thank you.
Trying to put a little levity here. You know why I'm on the Housatonic River Commission?
Because you live on the river?
Because there's a river.
Wrong river.
I know, you live in the nice river.
It runs into the.
No. Mayor Murphy, when I was in charge of the Milford First, if you remember, wouldn't appoint anybody to anything that was a Milford First. And it was pretty skimpy on Democrats. But you know, how many of you know where the Housatonic River Commission meets?
5 minutes.
It's not public comment, actually. Right. The whole point is, they could never put anybody on that commission. Even I had a hell of a time when I was mayor, get somebody on there. So one day I got this call from the executive secretary, Mayor Murphy, and said, would you like to be appointed to the Housatonic River Commission? So I said, oh, that's neat. I said, sure. Unbeknownst to her, you know, it's like putting the, you know, Briar Rabbit, Red Fox and all that. She thought she was sending me up to Cornwall. Up the river. Well, little did she know that those are all my goombas up there. I've known them for years. I knew everything. I knew the river upside down. And it's really been a pleasurable appointment. And I really don't want to, you know, you didn't have to ask me because we're doing great things and I'm going to sell it here. You're going to see the Housatonic right down at Boardman Bridge. And I also clarified whether or not Boardman Bridge was our consideration or the town. And it was decided, and DEP was there, and a few other people would say, no, the bridge is your deal. And I said, that's good because all you guys are going to pay for that. So the point being, though, you're going to have wild and scenic coming out of that commission, which nobody knows about, nobody wants to go to. But I go there religiously with a Republican also that is my sidekick. So we had a good time.
Thank you. We appreciate it, Bob. Keep up the good work. Thank you.
Did we vote?
No. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Entertain a motion regarding Inland Wetlands Commission.
moved.
Second.
All right. Is there discussion? Mr. Szymanski.
Just per Connecticut General Statutes 9-59, which is erasure or transfer of name. It states any elector whose name has been transferred from one enrollment list to another, or who has applied for erasure or transfer of his name from an enrollment list, shall not be entitled to be appointed as a member of any board or commission that is political in nature. And then it goes on for a period of 3 months from the date of the filing of his application for transfer or for erasure. And Mrs. Scribello, or Ms. Scribello, requested with the registrar, she changed her party from Democrat to unaffiliated on November 16th, 2017. So that would be within the 90-day time period. So if we were to elect her, that would be a violation of state statute.
We did discuss this. She's still considered a D for purposes. That's why it's not, you know, there as a U. Hold on for a second. I'm trying to confer with our town attorney. She's not a U. She was still considered a D. There was no application for erasure. It's just simply, you know, putting your answer U. Oh, okay. So then is she? She shouldn't be. All right. So
I'd like to make a motion to bifurcate this
So
vote.
we're making a motion to
I'd like to make a motion to bifurcate this particular vote and separate Angela Dimmitt from Irene Scribella and vote singularly on each.
That's fair enough. All right. So for Angela Dimmitt, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And then we'll just table. We'll table Ms. Scribello for consideration after 90 days.
Right.
Fair enough. All right.
I'd just like to say, it's not that I don't think she should be on there after the 90 days. She should throw her name in the deep.
Okay, fair enough. We'll note that for the record. You know, Mr. Szymanski has no objection to her after 90 days. Thank you. Library Modernization Committee. That's an motion.
I'll move that, but I just want to change the dates from 11/28/2017 to, they have 11/28/2018. It will be to 5/28/18.
That's right. It was a 6 month committee. Yeah. Okay. So with that modification, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And I'll note that there are 6 remaining positions that are vacant for Mr. Bass and the new council to fill.
I'd like to make a motion for municipal citation hearing officer, our fellow councilman Walter Bayer.
Second.
Fair enough. All in favor? You sure you want it, Walt? Usually this gets appointed to people when they're absent.
I don't know what I want to do.
Well, you need the money, take it.
Well, there hasn't been too much work for it. Hopefully there won't be in the future. But, you know, we appreciate you being willing to serve. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Northwest Regional Mental Health Board.
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Parks and Rec.
So moved.
Second.
Is there all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Entertain a motion regarding the Pension Committee.
So moved.
Is there a second? Any discussion? Ms. Francis.
I just have a comment. Corey Linder, who's a Democrat, that is taking over what was a Republican seat.
The expired position of Ms. Chapin, correct?
Yes.
Fair enough.
Just want to make note for the record.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Entertain a motion regarding the Planning Commission. Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Are you opposed?
Yes.
Okay. 1 opposed.
I'm
sorry.
opposed.
2 opposed. 3 opposed.
4
All right.
opposed.
I guess we'll do it. 4 opposed. 5 in favor. Motion carries. Thank you. Road Advisory Committee. Entertain a
moved.
motion. Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Could we just have
Aye.
a quick discussion?
Sure.
Mr. Bass, because of Mr. Hill's passion, he's been here several times. If we're to consider Mr. Altermat's appointment, would you consider expanding that committee by a few
Yes.
members? Okay, thank you. I'll be voting in favor.
Fair enough. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Sewer Commission. Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second. Okay. Mr. Esposito.
I'd like to make a motion to bifurcate this one as well and vote individually.
Sure. I think that's fine. All in favor? Well, let's get a second.
All right. Second.
Okay. All in favor of bifurcating?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. So, Mr. Bedetti.
I make a motion for Mr. Bedetti, Republican, for the term 11/28/2017 to 11/30/2019.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Winter.
Motion for Jeffrey Winter, filling a vacant position for 12/1/2017 to 11/30/2021.
Okay. Mr. Esposito.
I think you need a second first. And then
Oh, second. Okay.
Second.
Fair enough.
Let me second the first one. Was there a second for the first today?
I second.
I heard a
Okay.
second.
It's the best.
Wait a second.
Okay. So we've got a second for Mr. Winter. Issues on Mr. Szymanski.
Yeah, there's an issue on this one, section 1003 of the charter, for vacancies of appointed town board or commission. The regular slot, which Jeff is taking, is a Republican position per the list dated 11/15. So the charter says that any such vacancy, unless created by the expiration of a term, shall be filled by the appointment of a member of the same political party as the person vacating office. So this is an actual vacancy. So
hold on. Okay, so let me see. So
yeah,
which one vacancy is he? It's just a
there's
vacant
only
position.
one, I think, underneath McSpadden and above Bedetti.
I see. So it shouldn't be a vacancy. It should be filling the expired term of whoever would have been in that vacancy, is what it should have been.
So it should be a Republican.
No. It should be the term expires 11/30. So it was a vacancy that expires 11/30/2017. So it shouldn't be to fill the vacancy. It should be to fill the expired term of the vacant position.
So who expired?
I don't even know. We just have it listed as a vacancy. But the term expired 11/30/2017.
Could we ask Frank Bedetti who's the expiration term?
Expired this year.
No. You're already listed on here. So it lists right now the current members is Alexander Karp, John Whitman.
Bill Buckey resigned this year.
Who's a Republican?
He resigned.
He resigned, yeah.
So it's a vacancy. Can't be filled.
But he's not. Here's the distinction. If it was to fill the vacancy to next year or something like that, then yes, I'd say you're right. We'd have to fill it with a Republican. The term expires 11/30/2017. What we're doing is we're filling expired terms. So it should be clear. I mean, we added this as a modifier, but we'll say Mr. Winter is filling the expired vacant position of Mr. Buckby. That expires 11/30/2017.
I'd like to ask the town attorney to decide on this.
You asked for her opinion.
Right, that's why I like her opinion, yes.
Sure.
I'd also like to know when she's done.
So we're not filling that term, we're starting a new term.
Right.
So we're filling an expired term. So as long as these fulfill the minority representation, I think it doesn't have to be a Republican.
Okay. Fair enough.
Person resigned.
But you're not filling.
His resign. I think he would have.
The rest
He
of
would have
that
had
term,
to try
it's a
to
new
fill
term.
it as soon as he resigned.
Right.
Because
So
at this point, if he stayed on and didn't resign,
I
his
understand.
time would have expired anyways today.
And we didn't try to fill it.
So,
right.
Yeah.
Okay. So with that modification, it's
think
Mr.
there'll be
Winter will be
another-
filling the expired position of Mr. Buckby. Okay. Mr. Esposito.
Thank you, Mayor. With all due respect to Jeff, this is the third seat he will take tonight. This is something that the public has stated very clearly is distasteful. I know I'm sure he would love to be on all three, but I don't think this gives the ability for the people in the public to have an opportunity to serve. Three is a little bit, is stacking, in my opinion. It is something that I think he's going to serve wonderfully on the pension committee, which he's done before. I served with Jeff for many years on EDC. But to be on three, between pension, finance, and the sewer, is a little bit weighty, in my opinion, and the opinion of many people here in this audience.
Mr. Winter is here tonight, so let's invite him up. Let's see is it too much for you to handle,
That's
Mr.
not
Winter?
what I said. I didn't say if it was too much
Oh,
for him
okay.
to handle. I think it is too much for one person to be on this
Let's
many
let Jeff
boards that the
have
public
a
has
few
had
words.
such an issue with.
Let's let him address that.
Sure,
Mr. Winter,
you can
thank
ask
you.
some questions.
All right. Well, first of all, Tom, I do appreciate the thought and consideration, but let's think about people that sat on the town council and also sat on 2 additional boards. Town council meets twice a month and has a lot to consider. Mr. Bass, you know that quite well because you've served on more than one. You've served on a minimum of 2 boards while also sitting on the town council. Isn't that correct?
We're asking
Isn't that correct? I know. So here's the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I'm happy to answer it. Well, here's the thing. The weight of the committees that I'm being asked to serve on, the sewer commission meets once a month on a Monday. The Board of Finance alternate meets once a month on a Wednesday, other than budget season. And the pension committee, frankly, hasn't met more than once in about the last 3 years. Those of us who are on the pension committee now are trying to change that. So we hope to meet a minimum of semi-annually, if not quarterly. So the way I see it now is I've got, like on a quarterly basis, I would have 6 meetings, maybe 7 to attend to. So I don't see that as being overly weighty. The other thing is what it gives me a perspective on is the largest funds of the town. The pension fund is a huge fund, but rarely does that get discussed or brought forward other than at budget time. Obviously, the Board of Finance sees over everything. And also the Sewer Commission, not just because of the debt and not just because of the bonds, but it is a large segment of finance and revenue and importance to the town. If I can gain a perspective on all of those, then hopefully I can bring that knowledge back either to the Board of Finance, to you all, or to those other committees.
Yeah.
But again, that's realistically, we're talking 7 meetings a quarter, maybe only 6.
And I appreciate that, Jeffrey. My question to you is, as an ardent supporter of the expansion of the sewer plant, you, Frank, myself, and Pete led the charge years ago. Since then, you've been extremely critical of it. Now, you're an economic development guy. You were the vice chair of the Economic Development Commission when Frank was the chairman. Will you be using your positive economic stance in regard when you're making these decisions?
Absolutely.
Are you going to be looking at this to make sure that we can expand business, or are you going to try to obstruct the growth of the town?
Needless to say, my my career, as it were, if you want to call that, in terms of being an advocate for this town, has involved a focus on two main things, and that's economic development and education. Because the two of those things tie together. If you have a quality system of education, that attracts business. Business then helps to offset the tax burden to the individual homeowner, which lowers the tax burden for everybody, and also helps to improve the school system. And it's all a big circular, it's a circular thing, which we all discussed at that time. I'm still an advocate for the sewer system, but what I did not appreciate about what happened was that it was the people on the sewer commission and the previous finance director and the previous mayor did not discuss how large the IOU was to this town. And because it sat over there and was not brought forward, all of a sudden we had auditors who were saying this is a big problem, that this was a big problem for the town, and we would have to write down debt, which would have hurt our credit rating. So my hope is that, first of all, I will definitely be an advocate for economic development. I still believe that expanding the sewer plant was the right thing, but by not addressing the IOU, that was the problem.
So are you going to be in favor of keeping fees low to attract business, or are you going to be looking at this as more of a, raise fees to slow development? I mean, well, you've been a pro-economic development guy since the day I met you.
Yep. Well, again, I would personally like to see, and this does involve a certain amount of study on my part, but what I would ultimately like to see would be connection fees reduced in order to attract business. And also, I think one of the big problems that we did here at the Sewer Commission earlier this year was that because the septic fees were so low, it had really not been studied compared to other towns. I found it actually ridiculous, to be honest with you, that haulers from New York and other towns were coming to New Milford, taking off all of the waste for the spots for the septic. Our local haulers could not dump our waste. They were being forced to wait behind out-of-state people because the out-of-state people were being charged the same fee, same lower fees than they could pay elsewhere. So ultimately, there was a decision to raise the fees. But as I sat there, I could tell in one meeting, that the guys who haul the septic knew more than the people on the sewer commission. Period.
Mr. Esposito, can I just jump in? And I just want to allay also that, talk to Frank Benetti about this, Jeff Winter.
And listen, Frank Benetti has been an advocate for a long time, and that's why, as well as Teresa, I also wanted you back on that commission.
I think they're going to work well together. It needs some work, and nobody's looking to obstruct it. But we want to address the issues. Pete, we talked about. There are underlying issues, and we really want to emphasize expanding users on the line as opposed to raising rates. We want to keep it competitive because that's what's going to draw people in. And I think one of the things that I'd hope that would continue is lowering those connection fees, which are an impediment to new businesses. Hooking up. I'm long term. I'd rather see somebody get hooked up and then pay fees for 20 years than try to bang out a big connection fee. So
and I agree.
Jeff and I have talked about that, and
just to dispel a little bit of the myths that went on here in the last few years, we were, and Jeffrey will attest to this, we were about to suffer $25,000 a day fines unless we redid that sewer plant. It was one of the reasons why we drove that out of economic development, if you remember, Frank and Jeff. Right? We drove that message across the town. We helped drive that vote because the town could not continue to pollute the Housatonic River. And we weren't going to be stupid enough to be suffering from these types of fines. So you brought the vote forward, you did, and so did the rest of us. So I just want to make sure going forward that we're all still on that same economic development team that we were, almost 10 years ago, trying to drive people to town and not trying to stop them. And I'm happy to hear this, Jeff. Okay. And between you and I, we were friends for a very long time, and somehow, a handful of years ago, that separated. I don't know why. I still consider you my friend, whether you like me or not. So
look at this reconciliation. I don't believe it. That deserves a round of applause. All right? That's a beautiful thing.
I would like to work together. All right?
Get him a hug. Resolve. Yes. Resolution. Yeah, no. Very good. That's what I like to hear. No.
Just so everybody knows, I spoke to Jeffrey almost on a daily basis with Pete Bass when we created the Economic Development Corporation here years ago. For 2 years, 9 months, and 11 days, we worked together cooperatively.
Very good.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
Let's end on that note. Mr. Wargo, anything? Just very good.
There's a miracle for you, right, Jeffrey?
Oh, Frank, we're on such a high note.
Tom brought up an interesting point.
Let's
We
vote.
were faced with $25,000 a day fines because of our nitrogen situation.
Right.
We got 1 million new gallons. We're supposed to be getting a lot of money for the credits, and I've never seen it. I don't know where that money is gone, but we're supposed to be getting a lot of money from nitrogen credits, and I don't see it showing up.
We'll let you guys, figure it out. We're going to get into it. Let the commission can update the council.
All right, let's take a vote.
Thank you, everybody, for that. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Entertain a motion with regard to John Learson.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And for the alternate position, remember there are 2 alternates that are continuing for Andy Grossman. Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Szymanski.
Yeah, I, as you know tonight, I've had very few problems with people that are proposed to be voted on tonight. I have a problem with Andy. We're trying to form a government that everyone's going to work together. And Andy knocked on one of my friend's doors down the road from him and basically gave him a propaganda piece that was full of a bunch of lies.
You know what? I think this is a point of order, and I think that's an appropriate conversation.
I have the floor, Mary Jane.
I know, but I think this is
I have the floor. I have the right to speak.
But we're not here to
characterize people.
No, we are, because we're selecting people based on their character to serve on these boards.
But that's your opinion that it was
I
a
have
bunch
the
of
floor,
lies.
Mary Jane.
Sorry,
Thank
point
you.
of order.
Please don't talk to her that way, Mr. Szymanski.
Ladies
and gentlemen, where's that character discussion?
Yeah, where's the character?
Mr. Szymanski, all right, so
You're
your point is...
interrupting me, Mary Jane.
Could you let him finish, please? We're almost done. Let him finish.
All right, without getting into too personal, I think you've made your point.
It's too personal.
Call the vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
We have
I'd like
4
the
noes.
record to contain verbatim my statement that, I'll give you a copy of this if you like. At a subsequent meeting, I or another member of the council will make a motion to rescind this action or take other action to reverse it.
You can do that. Fine, fair enough. So the ayes have it. Thank you. And just with regard to that, Mr. Bass, I know you're still an alternate on that. I don't know if you intend to resign, but that would free up another alternate position for you guys to appoint as well.
Thank you.
Fair enough. So, youth agency.
So moved.
There's a second. Okay, Mr. Szymanski.
Just on this one, 1003, you guys made the argument earlier that the term was expiring and has to be filled by the same party for a vacancy. But in this case, the term's not expiring. It's until 2020.
Which one we got? We're
Paul Garlasco.
Okay, so let's do it individually then, like
Yeah.
we've done before. So I'll entertain a motion to do it individually.
Second.
Okay.
Motion, Pete Bass move, Mr. Esposito is second.
Right.
All right, so we'll do Mariah Waters first.
Reappointment of Mariah Waters for 12/1/2017 to
Second.
11/30/2020.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Entertain a motion with regard to Mr. Garlasco.
Mr. Paul Garlasco, Democrat, for the term 12/1/2017 to 11/30/2020.
Okay. Second. So just to clarify, so there is a vacancy that does expire again, similar to what we were discussing before on the sewer commission that expires 11/30/2017.
Okay, I take that back.
Okay. So with that clarified, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Virginia Land Groups.
Okay, reappointment for 12/1/2017 to 11/30/2020.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Erica Keene.
Appointment of Erica Keene.
Yeah, we'll just do
Second.
Yeah. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Linda Fields. Just
So
a so
moved.
moved with
So
it.
moved.
Yeah.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Barry Goldstein.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. James Carmelini.
Second.
So moved.
So moved and second. Okay.
A little
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And then Maureen Price.
So moved.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Entertain a motion with regard to the zoning commission.
Motion for Teresa McSpadden, 11/20, 28, 2017 to 11, 5, 2019.
And I think we should separate it. Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Up. We have opposition, so 4 opposed.
I'd like to record the record to contain verbatim my statement that at a subsequent meeting, I or another member of the council will make a motion to rescind this action or take other action to reverse it.
Okay, so you're going to...
Do you have an explanation as to why? Could you share that?
I don't have to give you any explanation. I just asked to have it read into the minutes. Thank you.
Okay, with no... So this will be a seated full member of the zoning commission filling a space from the resignation of Tom O'Brien. You're going to move to have that action rescinded.
I just said I'd like the record to contain verbatim my statement that at a subsequent meeting, I or another member of the council will make a motion to rescind this action or take other action to reverse it.
Fair enough.
It's in the future.
All in favor? Oh, so we already voted. Okay. Mr. Kane as the alternate.
So moved.
Is there a second? I'm sorry, who's second?
Second.
Mr. Bear. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
4 oppositions.
I'd like the record to contain verbatim my statement that at subsequent meeting, I or another member of the council will make a motion to rescind this action or take other action to reverse it.
Yeah, let me make a statement for the record as well. If there's a challenge based on Mr. Kane's position, let the record reflect that were I to break a tie, I would vote in favor of the ayes for this or any other appointments. Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen. We're making statements for the record. Got that? In my tie-breaking capacity. Thank you.
And I would like to make a comment about John Kane, who served really well on the Planning Commission. He did an excellent job. He did his homework. He's experienced with planning, and I think going over to the Zoning Commission is going to be like a natural transition for him.
Fair enough. But we've already voted, so let's move on. Zoning Board of Appeals. Leah Gill was one of the U's that we said, all right, so let's table that for 90 days. All right. I
think that's it.
That does it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh.
Walter?
Land.
I already said it.
And which one?
Walter, come on. You got to end the session.
No, we're not. Just make it a scrivener's error.
You don't need a motion to adjourn?
Let's do it anyway. Motion to adjourn.
Come on.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. Okay. Very good. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, Walter.
It wouldn't be the same.